てゆくよしなやかな心に汗をかけば白い冬のドラマの幕が今上がってく We are so dancers 地球の恋人たち若さを歌うように瞳の彼方へと We are so dancers 鮮やかに美しく明日に踊りながら愛と夢の中へ It's a number one spirit
It's a number one spirit. It's a number one spirit. It's a number one spirit. It's a number one spirit.
Beyond the winter きらめくきっとさ君は弾むと息にそっと熱く口づけたくて照り返す真冬の太陽に焼けた頬へ見投げて君を追いかけてゆく We are so dancers 地球の恋人たち若さを歌うように瞳の彼方へと We are so dancers 鮮やかに美しく明日に踊りながら愛と夢の中へ It's a number one spirit
It's a number one spirit. 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 It's a number one spirit.
Hello. Let me know if the audio is okay and if you guys can hear me. And I will get Clip Studio Paint in frame just so that people can know that we have started. There we go. I'm going to be trying to keep up with the chat on my phone, even though last time I tried, my phone completely, what's the word? It just failed on me, and I thought nobody was in chat. Sound coming in clear? Okay, good. You almost lost the start, Sleepy. Okay, that's me turning my tablet on. So hopefully my phone won't let me down this time, but we'll see how it goes. If it does, I'll have to figure something else out. So today, do we have any idea what we feel like drawing, or are we winging it, or what are you guys thinking? I decided to actually do some warm-up this time, because last time I was rather embarrassed because I was having kind of an off drawing day, and I think the reason why is because I hadn't drawn in like 2 days, and then I started the stream and I just expected myself to immediately be able to draw something and make it look good. And that's not really how it works. You should be at least some level of warm-up before you draw. But of course, I'm one of those people, I never actually do warm-ups, even though I should. But I just kind of go with it. So I've been working on this one. It's not for anything or anything like that. It's just something I've been drawing in my spare time. It's the wrong one. This is the one. And it's been sitting on my desktop for about a week now because I haven't had time to work on it because I'm still under contract with the studio. So that's kind of where all my time and energy has gone. But I worked on it a little bit today just to kind of warm up before I started the stream. So this is what I've been working on. I was mainly working on the purple lines you see here. I had done the rest of it earlier in the week. So that's one thing. And I wanted to do Noel for the coloring page for Patreon this week. And I started, but I was having a very off day and I wasn't sitting properly. So I'm really not happy with how she came out. This was the coloring page for last month, by the way, if you're not on Patreon. And the pose I wanted for her was this. Just turn everything off. Was this. And I quite like this pose. But when I actually tried to draw the pose on top of it, it just wasn't working for me and it was coming across very stiff. So I'm going to have to restart just like from the beginning. Just scrap this entirely. But that's what I've been working on. Oh, and I've been like playing with the idea of doing a VTuber model, not to actually VTube with though, because I don't think my laptop is strong enough to do a facial capture translated to a VTuber model and stream at the same time. I think that might be a bit heavy for it, especially with South African internet. I don't think it would be able to handle that. But it is something I've wanted to play around with just to kind of see how it works. So I've been playing around with that just kind of for myself. So this is what I've got so far. And it's been sitting on the shelf as well because when you do the cleanup, you have to do everything in parts. So this is what I've got so far. But for rigging purposes, it's like hair front, hair middle, hair back, and then the face is like, here's the eyes, and then if you go into the eyes, it's like, here's the bottom, here's the top, here's the shine, here's the shading, here's all the individual pieces of the iris itself. Like, it just keeps going and going and going, and you have to do everything on a separate layer. So there's going to be like 200 layers here, and because I'm just doing it to kind of figure out how VTubing works, I'm just like, I'm not going to focus too much attention on this right now because it's just going to take hours. Hey there, Hatsum. And hello to Zane and Vice the Gallant and Sleepy. Sorry, I need to get better with saying hi to everyone. But thank you. And that's more or less where I am today. So, not entirely sure what you guys want to see today. I was thinking maybe finally drawing Amaryllis because we've drawn Parsley, we've drawn Thyme, but Amaryllis, who I think we can all agree is kind of the best character in the show, I have not gotten to drawing her yet. So I thought maybe that would be kind of fun, especially because I just released part 3 of the High Guardian Spice review series. So I think that's kind of the vibe at the moment. It would help if I actually had the right folder open to get my references. Sounds like a plan? Okay. Where's High Guardian Spice? Here it is. One thing I find with making these videos is trying to find official art, like character concept art and character turnarounds. I think I talked about this before. It's just impossible. Like, it does not exist online at all. It just seems to not be a thing. So I kind of have to rely on screenshots a lot, like the screenshots I take myself. Hey hey Tinas. Uh-oh. Hold on, my laptop's kind of frozen. I hope you guys can still hear me. It's been acting weird today. Let me just type it in chat in case you guys can't see me or hear me. Because my audio player has also frozen, so I'm not sure if you guys are still with me or not. Oh, there we go. It has woken up. Hello. I don't know if you guys heard me during that time. My laptop's been acting very strange today. Oh, you can hear me? Okay. Yeah, my laptop's been very strange today. I think it might actually need a restart, but of course I only found this out like 10 minutes before the stream started, because of course I did. But that's fine. We're just going to work through it. Speaking of which, I didn't stream last weekend because I was planning to do it this weekend, and that turned out to be a very good idea because my laptop decided that it was going to do a Windows update on Friday evening, and when I started my laptop up on Saturday morning, the Windows update did not apply correctly. So the laptop was effectively just borked. I couldn't even change the wallpaper. I would like click to change the wallpaper and it would tell me to download an app to do so. Like, that's the level of just completely screwed I was. Where is a picture of Amaryllis? Oh, there we go. So I had to take it in and get it like serviced overnight, and it wasn't like a big problem, but it just took so long to get through because it was just done. It did not want to work that weekend, so I'm actually glad I decided to do it this weekend instead and just save myself that problem. Here we go. Oh, you see, here's my laptop might be frozen message. It went through twice. Just remove that. So she's got this white outfit, which I think works better than her school uniform outfit, because the white outfit just balances her better. It's very strange because in some ways I don't like the white outfit as much as her school uniform, but in other ways it does like balance her hairline better because she's got a very, very harsh widow's peak, which works for the most part, but it depends on who's doing the storyboarding, because sometimes it looks fine and sometimes it looks really, really off. Just trying to find another picture of her because I know I have more. Scrolling through Explorer. Where are you? That's episode 1, that's episode 2. Oh, here she is. Let's get that one out as well. Might as well do that one too. And I think, where's episode 2? Not episode 2, part 2. Here we go. Because I know she's got I've got some screenshots of her in like really great poses. But anyway, we'll just, we'll get started. Close this. Wait for Clip Studio Paint and my laptop to respond again. I'm sorry guys, sorry about the tech issues. Like I said, my laptop's been kind of funny lately. Waiting. If it keeps being a problem, I might end the stream early and then start a new stream and just restart my laptop and see if it fixes whatever problem it's having at the moment. Because this is clearly an issue. There we go. Close this, do not save. Close this, do not save. Okay, there we go, back on track. Sage would make a better villain than Amaryllis. You know what? You can say that jokingly, but I think that might actually be very interesting. Imagine if the story was about Sage, who was Rosemary's very best friend, and her obsessive, like clinginess of Rose actually turned her into a antagonist. and ended up being like the downfall of the group. Like that could be so fascinating. Oops, this is a bit bright. Just turn it down a bit. Is this a 300 ppi? Let me just check this. Change image resolution. Yes, it is. Okay, never mind. It's just me that's crazy then. But I think that would actually make for a good story. Like, that would actually be interesting. But I think a big problem with the show is none of it was really pre-planned. They kind of wrote it episode to episode, and I don't think they had a overall arcing writing. Like, they didn't work from a general point down to a specific point. They just kind of went episode per episode with a rough idea of what they wanted to hit when, and they didn't write the broader outline first and then looked in, you know, like homed in smaller on the episodes. And I think that accounts for a lot of problems in the writing. What if you're not joking? Also, hello, Despair Doctor. You guys must call me out if I don't say hi. It's just because I'm not too used to this yet, so I'm still learning all the decorum. Oh, that is... There we go. So if we have her hands here, and we use the line to do this for her axe. We put the axe here so that it's resting on the ground. It might be a bit long. We'll see how it is with her anatomy, but then she's resting on it like this. And there's her arms. Bring this arm in. Body. Twist. Put her legs like this. It certainly came off as if several groups were all coming up with their own ideas and we're not communicating well with each other. I do think that's a big part of it. One of the biggest problems I found working with certain studios and certain directors is the biggest problem is communication. If a studio doesn't have good communication from the management down to all the underlying departments, it's an absolute nightmare to try and work under those conditions. It's so difficult. And I don't know if you would consider that like management as a whole, but definitely communication is so important. I'm actually at a point now where if I find a studio doesn't communicate with me well, I really reconsider whether I want to work with them again in the future. They are like well-established studios where it might be worth it once to get the show on your resume, but the absolute pain you have to sit through with the miscommunication while you're actively working for them makes it almost not worth working for them a second time. So I'm thinking this is kind of messy, but we'll clean it up as we go. And because I can already tell I might have to redraw the head and move it around a bit. Let's go blue. Circle. Her face shape, she has a very round, okay, she's pulling a face here, so this isn't a good example here. It's quite rounded, not as much as Rosemary, but it is rather childish in its construction. It's not like Time, who has a very elongated face. So I don't want to give her too rounded cheeks. Oh, but I don't want it that angular. That's a bit much. I'm happy to see, I don't actually check my views on my videos, but I'm happy to see that the new video seems to be doing relatively good just based on the amount of comments I'm seeing in my activity feed. So that makes me quite happy. But I'm actively not looking at views at this point in time because I think that's something one can get kind of obsessive about, especially if you're like trying to build the channel and get it to a, you know, you're trying to have your channel grow and get bigger. And I think seeing the views, it's easy to just get obsessive with, is this video doing better or worse than the previous video? Why is it doing better or worse? And you can just kind of spiral and get so caught up in the statistics of it that you're not focusing on just making good videos. But it seems to be doing well, which makes me quite happy. And my sub count is sitting at 1.9, which means that the 2000 subscriber special video will probably be coming out sooner rather than later. I might have to publish it after I've hit 2000 already, because I'm capturing footage of the bookshelf right now, or bookshelves rather. So doing the recording and editing might take it so that I'll have hit 2000 before the video comes out. Hello, Mr. Nameless Purposeless the 7th. From what I hear, Crunchyroll had them changed at the last minute to be an adult show. It was intended to be more for kids. The creator even said so. You know what? That would make so much sense, because literally it feels like a kids show right up until episode 7, and that's when all the blood suddenly comes out of nowhere. So if that is the case, I would not be surprised, because everything about it and the way it's written makes it seem like it would be a kids show. And honestly, that's not their fault. It is a pain to have to switch like that, but that's not their fault. And they do have my sympathies, because having management like the higher up CEO who aren't involved with the creative process, having them mess things up, that can be an absolute death knell for a project. Yeah, as much as I would love a second season just to see if they learned anything, I just don't see it happening. Yeah, I don't know. The problem is, I think that even though the show isn't good, it's a bad show. I think we can all say that just with some level of confidence. If it was just a bad show, there would be a chance for it to get a second season. I think the reason why it won't get a second season is because Crunchyroll themselves, like the actual, what do you call them, corporation, they messed up their marketing so much that it's kind of a poisoned brand at this point. So it's not in their best interest to fund a second season because of the blowback. And of course, the way Crunchyroll has structured it is they shot the project in its foot with their bad management and marketing, and then it got all this hate and backlash, and Crunchyroll immediately was like, it's not even that they deflected, they're just like, if they were a person and not a corporation, it's like they deluded themselves into thinking that people disliked it because it's featured LGBTQ characters and things like that. And that's why they've got the adult warning in front of every episode. It's because they think that's why people were angry, and not the fact that Crunchyroll themselves mismanaged the marketing. So it's not in their best interest to fund a second season, unfortunately. And I say unfortunately because you're right, it would be interesting to see whether the creators actually learned something from just the disastrous release of this season. Because it's very true when they say something is only really a mistake if you don't learn from it. And I think that High Guardian Spice would be an excellent learning opportunity for many of the show creators. And I do hope it means that they'll go on to make something else, especially Rodriguez, because there are other people involved in the show's creation who I will not name, who I would rather not see work on future projects. But I don't want to name names because I don't want to get into trouble. There we go. If Masters of the Universe can get a second season, I don't see why not. I still need to watch that, but I've heard bad things. Isn't Mark Hamill voicing Skeletor in that? I heard something like that, and I thought that at least was a good idea, because Mark Hamill is such a legendary voice actor. Even though people say he was just kind of doing the Joker again, I'm like, yeah, but that's fine. I don't mind that. I'm not angry at that. Yes, he is. He did the voice for a character in a show I was obsessed with as a child called Time Squad. There's a robot character in that episode who's basically like a knockoff C-3PO, and Mark Hamill voices him exactly like C-3PO, and it's hilarious. Like, it's really good. I think she has rather thick eyebrows. No thicker than the others. I actually like the original art style of the High Guardian Spice. Now it just looks like a low-budget Avatar The Last Airbender or even She-Ra. Yeah, I've actually wondered about that, because if you look at Rodriguez's art style before the show came out, it's much more, I don't know, it's not unique, it's very much modern cartoon. However, I do think that the show might have had a clearer identity. So I also wonder if that's not also a Crunchyroll mandate, because they're an anime distributing company, whether they told Rodriguez and crew they had to have a more anime style show that looked more anime, which might be the case. Actually, I want to bring her eyebrows into that. She looks mean. There we go. I'm gonna round this out a bit more because she's tilting her head upwards. Why I decided to do this angle, I don't know, because it's difficult, but here we go. This has to be back here. There we go. So collarbone, shoulders, back. I do think the style of the show, it's honestly not that bad. Like, I do know it kind of looks like you said, bootleg She-Ra, but it's not the worst art style I've seen. And even if it was, I've watched cartoons that I was a big fan of that just looked horrendous. Like, for a very long time, one of my favorite shows was the 2003 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles cartoon. And that show, like, I hate the way that show looks. It's so ugly. But it's got some of the best writing for those characters I've seen in the cartoon. So I can overlook a show looking bad to a certain extent. But the writing, man, that's what can kill something for me 9 times out of 10, is just whether the writing is good or not. Okay, I've made her way too elongated in the thumbnail, so I'm just gonna make her bigger. There we go, that's better. And even the character designs are not that bad. Even Rosemary and Sage, they're not bad character designs. I do think Sage could have used a bit more time in the oven, because she kind of looks like, if you took a Little Witch Academia and Kiki's Delivery service and threw it in a blender, that's kind of what Sage's character design looks like. But I think if they had just changed her slightly, it could have really been a good design. And I've seen a lot of people do like character redesigns for the show, and they look great. Like, there are some excellent redesigns out there. Am I gonna have to flip her? No, because I'm having a bit of problem. There we go. And her feet will go here. Let me just make a line so I know what I'm doing. Do it that way. No, that's not gonna work. This one here. Come on, pencil, thank you. This goes up a bit too high. Let's go here. There we go. So collarbone, clavicle, shoulder, and I'm gonna put her hands, well, she's gonna be resting her chin on them, so I should draw them here. I can go there. There we go. So that'll be more or less where they'll be. No, I don't need to flip it. I keep wondering whether I should flip it and do it from this side. And I will flip it eventually just to make sure nothing's off balance, but because there's a certain side that's more easier for my hand to curve, and I always have to double check, is it easier for me to do it this way or is it easier for me to do it this way? And then I flip the drawing accordingly rather than to try and fight against it. I'm honestly very excited for your subscriber special because you have mentioned great shows like Recreator, and I'm excited to see what kind of books you read. Oh, thank you. I've taken some footage, and the reason why I thought it might be an interesting special, because I realized afterwards people might be like, what do you mean just showing off your, like, talking about your books? Isn't that kind of dull? But this is what my bookshelf looks like. So I have recorded let me just go to red here. I've recorded all of this and all of this. I've skipped this because of reasons I'll say in the video, and I've done this bookshelf. So I just have this and this to go through. But this is why I thought it might make for an interesting video because it's not just like a singular bookshelf like this. It's literally all three of them, and I thought it just might be interesting to be like, well, this is this book and this is this book, and this is why I think this is an interesting book, because I have some interesting books about topics which even I've never heard of, because I'd find them at secondhand bookstores and I'd be like, what on earth? And I would just like to talk about them. I have a book down here. I can use oh, here we go. This book here, Animal Fakes and Frauds, is fantastic, so I can't wait to like show that off. And it's this insane book, but it's fantastic. Oops. So that is kind of where I was like, oh, I'll show off my bookshelf, is because we're just going to go through them as fast as humanly possible, so I don't spend an hour on each shelf and just talk about them and be like, oh, you guys should check this out, you guys should check that out. No, do not save. Let's grab this blue again and go to pencil. There we go. So that's more or less where that hand would be. And that's where that shoulder is, so who's saying the idea isn't interesting? I'm looking forward to the videos. Oh, thank you, Sleepy. I think I was just like, because I see booktubers and they've got these extremely interesting setups for their bookshelves, and I guess they're using GoPros because they have it as like a chest cam, and they have their image just froze for a couple of seconds. Let me just go back to... Okay, well, it still says my stream is quite healthy. So let me know if you guys missed anything. YouTube, but you've met people that say they don't read books. Yeah, I had this one roommate for a while, and it wasn't that long, but that was a weird trip because she didn't have a single book in her entire apartment because I moved in with her. And there was not one book in that entire apartment. And it was the weirdest thing because my mother is a published poet. So I grew up with just my house being absolutely filled with books all the time. So the concept of living somewhere with somebody who did not have books, that was just an alien concept for me. I'm like, but how? How do you know how? That doesn't make sense. Just do straight line. What does her axe look like actually? There it is. It's actually quite short. Well, I say the handle is quite short, but it's one of those things where the handle kind of changes depending on what they want for this scene, which isn't terrible. I mean, that's not like it's against the law or anything. So when I draw this picture, she's just going to have a massive axe that's the same size she is, even though that's not canon, but who cares? Who cares? I normally read books I find in a public bookshelf. I don't know if you have that in your country, but it's great. Unfortunately, we do not, but that sounds really good. I wish we did have something like that. But my guess is that they would get stolen because people steal books, especially Bibles, because they tear out the pages and use them to roll cigarettes. So you can't really have that kind of thing here. But that sounds fantastic. I tend to go to secondhand bookstores a lot because I'm one of those people where I prefer holding a book in my hands before I decide to buy it or not, except if I know for a fact this is a book I want. But otherwise, I prefer seeing the book in person before buying it. What does this handle look like? Okay. Oh, it actually has a pointy end. Again, doesn't matter. It would matter if I was working on the show, but since I'm not, I'm just drawing this for the stream, it doesn't matter. Speaking of which, I've been wanting to get to a bookstore and get a secondhand copy of the Iliad, I'm thinking. Even though I do have the audiobook for it, I haven't listened to it yet, but I figured maybe, I don't know, like I have the audiobook, but it's a digital file on my computer. It's not like a physical item on my bookshelf. So it's like I have the Iliad, but I don't have the Iliad. So that's one book I kind of have been wanting to get just because I've been obsessing about Blind Guardian's song. And then there was Silence, which is about the Iliad. So I've been wanting to read the book just so I understand the song a little better. The point is to bring the book back or book you don't want anymore. It's the job of the people to keep it filled. The books are free. Oh, that's great. That's really cool. Like, I would really enjoy that. Because like I said, the really cool books I've gotten from secondhand stores. I have the Animal Facts and Frauds book I got at like a farmer's market. I have a book on Victorian newspaper headlines, which I got at a secondhand bookstore. Like books where you're like, how did somebody get the idea to publish this? And I always find those at secondhand bookstores. There we go. What are these blades? Oh, that's quite complicated. I am going to cheat and I'm going to do this. Because I don't feel like drawing these blades freehand. Yeah, that works. Oh, hi, Seapuff. Oh, hi, Hunter Holtzman. There is an old couple that fill these shelves with their books. There's also one in nearly every city. Ah. I really like that idea, and I'm glad you live somewhere where that is something people can do. I was seeing the headlines about the auction where the first edition Harry Potters that J.K. Rowling signed didn't get auctioned, like nobody wanted them. And in that thread they were talking about this specific bookshop. Is it in Barcelona? I think it's in Barcelona. If it's not, please forgive me. That's tied to the Harry Potter franchise in some form or another, and they hate it because people come to the bookstore just to sightsee and they don't buy anything. And just what that bookstore looks like, it's so gorgeous. It's absolutely beautiful. And I'm like, oh, I'm gonna go to the bookstore. I'll buy a book at the bookstore. I will go there to spend money and not just take photos. I'm bragging. No, you're not bragging at all. Not at all. I find it quite interesting. One thing I was wondering, and maybe you guys can tell me, I have a book that I'll also show off for the bookcase tour. It's about, I don't know if you guys know what a bog body is. In short, it's like a mummified remain. But the thing is, the book that's about these, it's a book on archaeology. It has a photo of one of the bog bodies on the cover, and I just want to know what you guys think about showcasing that. If that's something that would make people kind of uncomfortable, or do you think because it's in a historical lens, it wouldn't matter so much? Because, I mean, you can put a mummy or a skeleton on a YouTube video and it's no big deal. But I just want to ask before I just whip that out of nowhere, because I'm into history and specifically archaeology, so historical remains don't really upset me, but as a result, my radar on what to be careful with showing people because they might find it shocking is a little bit warped. So I'm not sure if that would be considered maybe a little bit too upsetting, or whether you guys think it's fine because it's historical remains. It's not like a murder or anything like that. I saw your latest video. It was great. I really love you go into depth on storytelling. It gave me a lot of knowledge if I ever do write. Thank you. Yes, I know I waffled a lot on, especially when I started talking about homage and parody, and I could have cut that down shorter, but at the same time I felt that people need to understand what I consider within the definition of a homage specifically, because calling things like basing Olive's design on Tokyo Mew Mew, people will call that a homage when it really isn't. That's not what the definition of a homage is. And I don't know, that just really got to me. I'm like, it's not a homage, guys. Kendi, you would like to learn more about that? Okay, I might, maybe, I wanted to say I might put a photo on the community tab and ask if it's too shocking, but to do that I would have to show it on the community tab. So that might not be the answer. It's probably fine and I'm just overthinking it. It's just because I know what it actually is there's a certain YouTube video where somebody talks about the what is it called? The famous case in Russia of those hikers that went missing and were found later. And this person uses one of the remains as the YouTube thumbnail. And I found that just so disgusting, especially if you compare it to like Lemino's video, who also covered that case. And he has that entire video and he censors all the bodies. And that video has like 6 million views. So it's not as if having that shock value in your thumbnail means it's not as if you don't get views and you have to be that shocking about it. And just because that thumbnail made me feel so angry, because I'm like, that's so gross to be that exploitive, I guess it's made me sensitive to not do the same thing, I suppose. It wouldn't be upset, but I can't say about others. Yeah, like I said, maybe I'll make a community post without actually showing the image, because it's not like the image is shocking. Oh, you know what I can do? I can link to it on Amazon and say, this is the book cover. Do you guys think this is a little bit too much? And then people can click on it and view for themselves if they're comfortable, and people who don't want to see it at all can just avoid the link altogether. I think I'll do that because it's a way to ask without exposing people who may not want to see it. I've gotten really into watching reaction channels lately, people who react to movies and such. And there's one lady, and she's only ever watched chick flicks, so she is very sensitive to violence. And I also think about people like that, because that's not somebody I've ever met in real life in my experience. But the fact that I am aware that people like that are out there, I just kind of want to keep that in mind as well. At least it taught me to be more original with my inspirations. Yeah, because like, it's fine to be inspired by something. I just think it's a case-by-case basis. You can't say, this is the line for all inspirations everywhere, and you can't cross it. You kind of have to judge by story whether the inspiration is a little bit too strong or not. And also, the better your story is, the less people are bothered by it taking inspiration from other places. if you pull it off, people don't care that you've taken heavy inspiration, because you see things like Indiana Jones and how much it took from original serialized adventure serials. And some of those scenes are one for one, but because Indiana Jones is so good, like, we don't care. It's like, Indiana Jones is good, what do we care? Mummies don't perturb me, so from my end it sounds fine. I recall just thinking it was fascinating when I went to an exhibit. I don't know if the mummies of Guanajuato, sorry for pronunciation, are very known outside the country. I'm not sure. I'm not good with names, as we've established from my videos. I'm very bad with names. So I might be aware of them and just not realize that that's what they are. I'm spending way too much time on this axe. Let's actually get to Amaryllis. I know she's got like a widow's peak like this. And then it's, well, somebody pointed out her hair is actually like the axe. So, again, the character designs are not that bad. Like, you can tell somebody gave them thought. Oh, it just kind of does this. Like that. She kind of has Vegeta's hairstyle. I just realized. At least this part here. She's got the same widow's peak that Vegeta has. Make your Sonic OCs less obvious. Exactly. Or make your game very good, and then people won't really care about your Sonic OCs. Because speaking of Vegeta, Sonic's supersonic form, I mean, that's just going Super Saiyan. It's literally going Super Saiyan. But nobody cares because the original Sonic games were so good. So it's like, I know, it's Super Saiyan, we all know this, but the game's good, so who cares? And I'm going to make this, her hair's a little longer, but I'm actually going to make it about here just so that we see it more. I think I had it in the thumbnail. Yeah, see, I had it all the way up here. And bring it down. Even though her hair should be much lower, I just kind of want to make an interesting silhouette here. There we go. I have a book on bog mummies, and then my other mummy book is about, I don't know what it is. It's another one I found at a secondhand bookstore. It's about Chinese mummified remains. I still need to look into what it is exactly, but that also caught my eye. Honestly, I'm desensitized by dead bodies and such. I'm fascinated by poisons, and they can do some fucked up shit, and body horror. I love that, but my mom isn't. Yeah, see, that's the thing. I love horror movies, and I do have a, I don't want to say filter. My brain is very fine-tuned to recognize when something is fake and when something is real. For instance, the start of Rambo 4 starts with a reel of very real life footage of the Burmese war, and I did not appreciate that. That was extremely upsetting to me. But then, like, the movie The Thing, which has this intense body horror in it, like, I love that movie because it's fake, so I don't mind that it has this intense body horror because it's practical effects. It's not real life war footage. So it also depends. But when things are in a historical setting, I don't find it as upsetting, but I do know that some people might be a little bit more put off by it than I am. There we go, that looks better. The design I feel for High Guardian and Spice are fine, but would have looked better in a different style that complements them well. Yeah, we were talking about this earlier, where the character designs are not that bad, and I was wondering whether Crunchyroll had mandated that they needed to use a more anime aesthetic because of Crunchyroll's anime distribution, because this was supposed to be their very first original show. Even though, when did they start streaming Ruby? Why does Why does Ruby not count? Oh, whatever, it doesn't matter. I don't know why I'm getting so worked up. It literally doesn't matter. Knuckle goes here. There we go. Wrist. Finger. One thing I like about the character designs in High Guardian Spice quite a bit is a lot of the characters have painted nails. And it's such a small detail, but it gives them quite a lot of character because you don't see that often, even in anime. And that's one thing I really enjoy. So that's one thing I can say they've done that's objectively good in my opinion. Hello Zane! Congrats on getting 2k subs. Really? Did I hit 2k? Hold on, let me check. I know I'm almost there. If that's like a preemptive thing, congrats, then thank you. Come on YouTube, I know you're struggling today. I like how YouTube recommends my own stream to me. Thank you. It's very kind of you. Channel. Ah, not yet. We're still at 1.9. But we're almost there. We'll get there pretty soon. Which is exciting. Let's make this a bit smaller. Here we go. There we go. Actually, I'm gonna bring these two fingers down because at the moment they're not resting on her hand and that's a little strange. There we go. Better. I'll check, did I make her arm too big? No, not really. Okay, this outfit. See, I quite like this outfit, but I don't think I'm gonna draw her in it. I kind of... Do I want to draw her in her school uniform or the white outfit? Should we do the white outfit? Let me start off with... I'll finish this off and you guys can tell me whether you think we should do the white outfit or her school uniform or the PE uniform. What are these Celtic knots? Oh, I see. Okay. White outfit? That's one vote for the white outfit. I think it just does this. White outfit? Okay, let's do the white outfit then. There we go. Okay, X done. So it has... Where's this outfit? It's got a jewel here. I'll jump on the bandwagon. You're working on something while I'm drawing as well? Well, that's cool. I watch Vinny Vinesauce, and sometimes I'll have him playing while I'm running around in Morrowind just doing like random tasks, or if I'm playing Minecraft. Why did I draw this when it's covered up by her arm? So that's pretty cool. These are quite long sleeves. There we go. Let's do it like that. Morrowind for the win. Yeah, I love that game. I've been playing it again after putting it aside for like 20 years. And I'm replaying it, and I can't remember why I started replaying it, but it's just reminding me just how good that game is. But of course I've had to mod it to hell and back just to kind of get it looking presentable. I'm thinking maybe the character designs in High Guardian Spies are not too different from the people drawn in Onyx Exion. Oh, Equinox, sorry. Onyx Equinox. To probably change from Ray's original versions happen to make it easier to produce. That could also be possible. Hey Nox's Gill. Is it Nox Gill? Nox's Gill? And thank you. We are drawing the objectively best character. That's the other thing. I haven't started the video on the next part yet, but in the next part, not only does Amaryllis' character get better, like even more likable, Sage's character gets worse. Like if you think her just going off in part 3 is the worst that she gets, she manages to get even worse near the end of the show. It's unbelievable. Like you have to put effort in to be that unlikable. Puff, I have a question. I see your High Guardian Spice clips have Spanish subtitles. Why? The reason why is because when I started making the video, I needed the episodes ripped so I could take screenshots of them in very high quality. And nobody had the episodes up for download because I can't download them directly from Crunchyroll. So nobody had them up for download whatsoever. And the only place I could find them was some random YouTube channel had uploaded all of them with Spanish subtitles. And that's the only place I could find them. So I was like, okay, you know what? We'll just work with this. It's fine. Nobody cares about this show enough to pirate it. So I'm going to work with what I have here. So that's why they have Spanish subtitles, and they're hard subbed in, so I can't turn them off. You said you will talk about Snap's gender later. I'm interested in what you will say, because the internet are pretty divided. Yeah, I actually quite like the way it's done. I think that the method in which it's presented is very, what's the word? It's clunky. But I want to go into it when I'm sitting and writing the script, because I think it's something that I would really have to think about my wording, just to make it clear that when I criticize things like this, I criticize the writing, not the fact that there is a trans character in the show, because it's very easy to fall into making it come across that way, rather than saying, no, it's not what they've done, it's the method in which they've done it. And it's also because I myself am not trans. So I will have to look into comments and feedback that a lot of people have left who are trans, who are unhappy with that part of the show. Even though I quite like it, I can't actively say whether it's good presentation or not. Representation, sorry, not presentation. I can only say as an animator what I think of the writing. So I'm not going to go into it too much here, because it is something I want to give proper thought and attention to, because it is a serious subject. And I think even if the show might not deserve that level of thought, the subject does. So I just want to, I want to express myself in the clearest way possible. Was Amaryllis even made by Ray? I don't know. Also, hi Dark Frost Star. I don't know, because it's difficult because there's so little official art on the internet of the characters. But if I were to look at Rodriguez's Tumblr page where he's uploaded all his art, Amaryllis never features in his art until after the show came out. Then all of a sudden he started drawing her character in his art. So I don't actually know. That's something everybody was saying when it came out, that nobody even hosted them in Pirate Sites. Yeah, you had no idea how hard I had to look. I'm not going to talk about it too much in detail, just because YouTube tends to be a little bit sensitive with that topic. But let's say, the way Grimbeard puts it, the YouTuber Grimbeard, buying the show from Walmart was difficult because Walmart didn't have stock, and I had to go to like Reddit and read up on people's conversation on where can I buy this show, because nobody had it. And that's kind of hilarious. I've never seen that happen before, where it's just completely unavailable. And I was looking up Crunchyroll downloaders, how to download video files from Crunchyroll. But the only Crunchyroll downloaders you have to like pay for in a monthly subscription. And I'm like, I'm not doing that. A good number of moments aren't integrated too well into the story. When the subject is brought up, it usually brings the story to a halt. Yeah, there's so much of that. Again, it makes me think that they were writing it episode by episode, which is not a good way to do things. Unless you're like extremely experienced with writing and you know how to pull it off. I was thinking specifically on the writers who did Beast Wars, the Transformers cartoon from the early 90s. They had to write not knowing whether it's going to be a reveal that the show takes place on a future Earth. So they kind of had to write around that detail and do their best while Hasbro figured out whether they wanted that to be a plot point or not. And they were able to pull it off, but that's because they're writers who had experience and knew what they were doing. She has a skirt under this. I think I made this a little bit too low because she has a skirt under it, so it doesn't actually go that low. There we go, that's better. My theory is that High Guardian Spice is a social experiment of sorts. They made it as cheap and as bad as possible just to see if we of the LGBTQ community would support it regardless of quality. Eesh. That's rough because I've seen some comments on Twitter of people in the LGBTQ community who are doggedly defending it just because it has representation, and I'm like, oh come on guys, we need to demand better. We can't just settle. And it makes me want to compare it to the blaxploitation film history, like what happened with film in the 60s with blaxploitation. But I also don't want to compare it to that because I don't think it's a good idea to compare one social change to another when they are very different in many ways, even though they are very similar in many ways. I'm not too sure whether that's a comparison that's a good idea to make. Especially when black film is still not... It's much better quality, but we still don't have a lot of black film that just happens to be black media. Because I'm thinking of movies like Us and Get Out. The fact that they are black horror movies is almost kind of the marketing. That's the point of the movies to a certain degree. And I don't know. I'm kind of talking in circles here, but I think you guys get what I mean. I am lucky though, because there is an argument that people like to throw, like, well, it wasn't made for you. But in this instance, it is made for me as part of the community. But there are certain movies where I'm like, even if it wasn't made for me, don't the people it was made for deserve a better product than this? I don't have a picture of her shoes, so I'm just gonna have to... Oh, she has those moon boots. Hold on. Okay, not her PE outfit. She has these really cool moon boots that you don't see very often. But I know she wears... Yeah, here we go. She wears them when they're sitting on the balcony. Yeah. They look like those self-lacing shoes from Back to the Future. There's a comic that's objectively real bad called Boyfriends, and a lot of the community supports it, even if it's stereotypical and rather offensive. Oh dear. It's a bit like, there's this movie called The Birdcage, which in some ways hasn't aged very well because it's from 1995, but in many ways has aged perfectly. And then you hear people complain that we don't have LGBTQ movies where the characters are older, and we don't have LGBTQ movies unless it's about AIDS or unless it's about a relationship between people who are vastly different ages. And then I'm like, yes, but the birdcage exists. The birdcage is great. And it stars Robin Williams, it stars Nathan Lane. It's this gorgeous movie about a gay couple in their 50s. And it's about their son getting married to a woman whose father is a conservative politician. And it's a great movie. It's really funny. Do you work in the industry as an animator? I'm sorry if it's too intrusive. Usually I work as an animator. At the moment, I'm in a different group on the current show I'm working on. However, I'm on heavy NDA, so I'm not allowed to say what the show is or give details about it. But my profession is as an animator. So I am on the animation team, but I'm not working as a character animator right now. But normally that would be my job description, is the character animator. Did you know that High Guardian Spice was inspired by Petite Princess is it Yuchi? When I found out about that, I really started to wonder if Glenda was where Amaryllis came from. I have not seen Petite Princess. I am aware of it, but I've not watched it. That's interesting though, because I always think, and maybe this is just my prejudice, I always think that a lot of the Americans, they only really know Sailor Moon and Revolutionary Girl Utena as magical girl shows, and they don't really know about the others. So that's quite interesting, if it happens to be true. Which it might be, I just don't know. Amaryllis' hair is amazing. It's not the best or unique or that visually compelling, but it's shaped like an axe, which is really cool. Reminds me of Hey Arnold's design. It's actually also really good because it gives her a very unique silhouette. A lot of the characters do have very good silhouettes, but Amaryllis' axe hair, it gives her such a unique shape that even if she is completely black, like a shadow, like I'm talking like that kind of black, you would still be able to recognize her due to that hair shape. Oof, I'm American myself. Yeah, like if you're not, let's call it what it is, if you're not a weeb, chances are the only magical girl anime you're really aware of is Sailor Moon. And I see that, like, I did an early video on that Magical Girl Friendship Squad, and 99% of it was making fun of Sailor Moon. A little bit of Kill la Kill, but mostly Sailor Moon. And I'm like, yes, Sailor Moon came out in 1992. We've had a lot of Magical Girl series since then. Okay, this is good. Now I'm trying to do her hat, but this is going to be tricky because of how the circle tool works. It doesn't have like an oval tool. Nope. Okay. I'm gonna do it this way. I love Nathan Lane, great actor, voice actor. You know what? When I was 7 years old, I was obsessed with Timon from The Lion King. I was absolutely obsessed with that character who's voiced by Nathan Lane. And then many, many years go by, and I find it very ironic that the one character I heavily imprint on is the one character in the entire movie that's not only coded as being in a gay relationship, but is also voiced by a gay actor. I'm like, okay, yeah, that's pretty typical. Ah yes, the silhouette thing is true. I just wish they didn't went so overboard with that with Rose's hair. It looks like a pair of squashed spiders. That is because she is very much, if you look at the early art of her, she's very much supposed to be, to a certain degree, Madoka Magica, like Madoka's design. That's where it comes from. And then the pigtails just got poofier and poofier with time. But they originally started as relatively normal. You know what? I just realized I have not saved. Anyone who's drawing, save your work. Amaryllis. Enter. The pitch art was very Madoka-ish. Yeah. I'm wondering whether Sage is also supposed to be slightly based on Homura. Not visually, but in personality. Which might be. But she's a little different. So I can't say that she's a direct one-to-one. Neither is Rosemary, but visually, if you look at the early stuff, it's very obvious where the idea came from. Yeah, she's not much like Madoka personality-wise at all, and that's been consistent. But also it's because originally she was very much Rodriguez's self-insert, especially pre-transition. He was much more using Rose as his self-insert before he started using Caraway as his self-insert. Save each 10 minutes, keep suicidal thoughts away. That's my model. It's true. When I was in animation college, I drew myself a post-it notes picture of Raphael from the Ninja Turtles just glaring at me, and it just says Control S just to remind myself. Triangles. See, like, I'm drawing her now, and her design is pretty well done. She has these diamond shaped jewels, and they're repeated. Like, it's there, it's on her shoes, it's on her hat, and then she also has these triangle shapes on her skirt here. It's very good character design. Like, it's very well thought out. There is effort, and like, not even effort, just competence shown here. Like, somebody knew what they were doing when they designed her. The sad thing is, I have self-inserts and I'm finding ways to make it less obvious, but yet it's so hard to do when all the characters you write come from you. Yeah, I think it boils down to, even if you have a self-insert, which isn't, it's in of itself is not a terrible thing. But the problem with Rodriguez, and somebody said this in the comments, is because his characters are self-inserts, he struggles with allowing them to be bad people sometimes. He doesn't want them to do things which can be viewed as bad or problematic because they are him. You know, they're not just aspects of his personality, they are supposed to be him in the show. So he doesn't want them to do anything that could be seen as quote-unquote bad because it reflects back onto him. This is not my best hat. I'm sorry, I'm actually not going to erase it. I'm going to edit it slightly and see if I can make it look more organic, because I'm not happy with this. He used to look exactly like Rosemary before he transitioned. Yeah, like, I don't want to bang on that too much in the show because it is speculation to a certain degree, and I kind of want to focus on things that I more or less know either for a fact or can speculate on from a position of knowledge. But it's pretty obvious. it's really obvious. Where I'm from, we had power shortages all the time, so saving paranoia became a second nature. Yeah, like, I don't even want to talk about the electricity situation in my country right now. My house is in a good position where we still have power 24/7, but that is not the case for literally everywhere else. It's a big problem. I need some water, hold on. I feel like if High Guardian Spice wasn't on Crunchyroll, people would only talk about the trailer, or maybe not even that. Yeah, I'm actually going to go into that because I think that, frankly, the only reason the show got picked up at all, despite being a bad pitch, is because Crunchyroll was desperate and they couldn't afford a show from established animators, and they could make it very cheaply, and it's non-union. Like, all these marketing things came into it, like the business side of things. I love the budget excuse they gave for the low quality of everything. Like, there aren't people who animate better in weeks for free and for fun. Even if that was the case, even if the show looked low budget, like really low budget. You know what other show looks really low budget and people really like? Sailor Moon. Revolutionary Girl Utena almost had zero budget. The original He-Man cartoon, have you looked at how that show moves? There is no budget for that show, and part of it was because they refused to outsource any animation to Korea or Japan. They did all the animation in America themselves, so they couldn't afford to animate the whole show. And He-Man is still a thing that people watch, like the original. People watch that because it's funny and the characters are fun and the setting is interesting. Like, it's a low budget show that looks low budget, and guess what? People still like it. Same for Sailor Moon. You know, every time I hear Rosemary, I think of a character from Amphibia who shares the same name. It feels like they could have gotten some people from Newgrounds, pay them only a third of the budget, and then end up with better animation and looking result. Yeah, the animation isn't that bad. It's mainly the storyboard that's the problem. And I can't say specifically why, but I think the reason that there are so many storyboarders, that is a big reason why, is because of consistency. You can't keep things consistent if you've got like 8 people working on a singular episode. Keeping the thing looking the same way throughout is almost impossible, which is why shows generally only have about 3 people doing storyboarding. He-Man had no budget but had a lot of love on it. I love it all. It's very decently written. Sailor Moon is super fun too. Yeah, Sailor Moon I almost don't want to bring up because Sailor Moon is directed by Ikuhara, and Revolutionary Girl Utena, which had, I don't want to say less than a budget than Sailor Moon, because Sailor Moon's first season had 0 budget. Revolutionary Girl Utena also has such a low budget, but it's also directed by Ikuhara. And I think Ikuhara is just a good director who knows how to manage people and knows how to manage a low budget and be like, okay, this is the money we've got. How do we use it to its full potential? Didn't Ray hire 11 storyboarders? Yeah, per episode. Sorry, I just popped the mic. Per episode. I've yet to see an episode with less than 8 people storyboarding it. Also, I think Amaryllis is rough is done, so I'm going to start inking her. There we go. Black pen. Actually want to give her more eyelashes. Yeah, she's got these like almost wingtip eyelashes. She actually kind of has the same eyelashes I draw when I draw my PNG face, like my little avatar for my videos. She kind of has the same eyelashes. 11 storyboards equals money laundering scheme. Illuminati confirmed. Also, I've worked for studios that no longer exist, that it just absolutely botched the management, not even just budget wise, just the management of people. So I'm also able to kind of see the symptoms of bad management, like the people on top. That's also kind of part of it. Like, I'm not making these allegations out of nothing. It's like, oh no, I recognize these working conditions. I've been the person in these working conditions. I heard somewhere that good writing saves bad animation, but not the other way around. Yeah, no, it is so. And that's actually a point I'm going to make in either the next part or in part 5 if I decide to do like an autopsy of the entire series. Is compare it to shows that are really written well and just have 0 budget or look like trash. Another good example is, what's it called? Don Hertzfeldt's animation. I think it's called Everything's Okay. It's something he animated himself, just himself, by himself, and it's stick figures. And it was nominated for an Oscar, you know. It's excellent animation, but it's not what you'd conventionally consider quote-unquote good animation, because it's literally little stick figures that he drew on paper. It's either called Everything's Okay or Life... No, not Life, the Universe, and Everything is a Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy movie. It's got a name something like that. I can't remember what it is right now. He also did the Rejected cartoon. That's what it's called, Rejected, if you've ever seen that. Sometimes animation isn't the strongest part of the show. Just look at South Park. Yeah, South Park looks the way it does because it has to. They have to do an episode per week, and out of the 7 days, 6 of those days are used on writing. That's also part of why South Park looks the way it does. Because if they were to wait longer than that, then whatever topical point they're talking about would be outdated if they worked more on the animation. Puff, show us your dark secrets. Show us your precious settings. Why are you using old magic? I am using a downloaded asset. And again, my katakana is terrible. So it's I think we said it was Gyasu Pen, which is from the Clip Studio Paint asset store. It's a free download. And I put my stabilization to 15. And I'm using a canvas Huan. And I calibrated this using Clip Studio Paint's calibration, which I didn't do at first, so my ink pressure was really wonky until I realized, oh, I have to tell Clip Studio Paint how to handle this tablet. I can't just plug it in and expect it to work properly. Yes? I don't know, like, I'm not sure about the second katakana character, because it's a Roman G, and then the katakana character I don't know very well, then Su, and then Pen, like Pen. So I'm just not sure of that character. And also, poor animation can just be considered a style that works, once again, like South Park, yeah. And again, even if it looks bad, if it's written well, people don't care. They'll complain about it looking horrible, but they'll essentially what they'll say is, oh, the show looks terrible, but it's worth watching. Again, I talk about the 2003 Ninja Turtles cartoon. It looks terrible. Like, it really does. It looks so bad. And case in point, in season 5, they got better animation because they changed studios, but they also changed writers. And the show ended up sucking, even though it looked better. Girasu Pen? Girasu Pen? Okay, that's what it is. Thank you, Dark Frost. Canvas Huan 14? No, it's Canvas Huan 13. And I'm quite happy with it. I can really recommend it. It's very good. Especially for what it costs. Like, it's literally less than half the price of a Wacom. It's insane. Do you use the Japanese kanji study app? I want to get it, but I don't. Just because studying, you know, I've got ADHD, so studying is not one of my strengths. It's something I really struggle with a lot. I'm supposed to be studying for the IELTS exam to prove that I am comprehensive with English, and it's really hard to study. It's so difficult. It's a miracle I survived high school. Ninja Turtles 2003 looked that bad. It didn't look terrible, it's just I hated the art style. Because they went for this very realistic comic booky style, and as a result, it didn't animate very well because they were so focused on it looking anatomically correct, kind of like the He-Man cartoon. The second you try and make something look realistic in animation, it becomes 10 times harder to animate, and you need really good budget and really skilled animators to pull it off. It's why the Disney's Tarzan movie, the only reason that looks good is because Glenn Keane was the head animator and he did most of Tarzan's shots. Oh yeah, English tits. I've had those in the USA too. Yeah, it's not fun. It's mostly the studying, like I said. I'm not worried about the writing part, and I'm not worried about the speaking part, but I am worried about the comprehension, where you have to listen and then answer questions, mostly because they don't allow you to listen a second time. You have to listen to it once and then answer questions, and you don't get a second chance to hear what was said. So I'm a little stressed about that. That's kind of where most of my studying is going. Oh yeah, that I understand. I used to prefer cartoony over realistic, but tastes change as you get older. Yeah, like, I prefer cartoony, but it depends. And I think it also depends on the show itself. But even in like anime, I prefer like the 80s art style of anime. Oh, my phone's gonna go off in a second. If you hear my phone buzzing, guys, that's just a reminder. I like anime styles from the 1980s, and I'm a big fan of the Megazone 2-3 OVAs, but Megazone 2-3 Part 2 has an extremely hyper-realistic art style for the characters, and I really don't like it. I really don't like it. It just makes me uncomfortable. Fingers. I'm not too happy with this crease here, but I'm just gonna deal with it, because I don't want to get too wrapped up in trying to make things look perfect, or we'll be here all night. And my throat can't handle that. Not yet, anyway. I was thinking of buying a microphone stand, so that when I do audio recordings for videos, I'm actually standing up when I'm talking, because I've been watching a lot of vocal coaches talk about how to use your voice, because I got really obsessed with watching vocal coaches react to Nightwish, because I want to see what their facial expressions are when Fleur starts singing. And they talk a lot about using your diaphragm and not talking from your throat, but because I'm sitting down and I'm bent over my mic, I speak from my throat. And as a result, it really strains my voice after an hour or so. If you're a bird flying for the first time, you don't get a second time. That is true. How do I do line art so well? Line art is the worst thing for me because I'm very sketchy with my drawings. I'm not sure how to give advice, because I'm one of those people where I enjoy line art. That is possibly my favorite part of a drawing to do, is the line art. Most people say they like coloring. I like coloring, but doing the line art is my favorite. And I think it's because, especially with the screen tablet, I can just flow, make a line really liquid and just flow. And I really enjoy that. It just makes me feel good. It's like, oh yes. Oops. I think also I have a big fondness for black and white comics, and as a result, I think it just taught me to really appreciate line work in of itself without color whatsoever, not even flat colors. And a lot of my learning what my art style is depended on enjoying black and white comics and me wanting to replicate that traditional inked look. I think that might also be part of it. I love your accent. It's fantastic. I want to copy it. Ever since I saw Utopia UK, I want to learn English like that. Thank you so much, because the reason why it took me 5 years before I started doing YouTube videos is because I was self-conscious of my accent. And I think it's because at that time, most of the YouTubers I saw talk about the things I talk about were American. And I'm not American, and I'm not British, and I'm not even Australian. I have this strange accent. And I was really worried it would throw people off and just be, like, you can't listen to it because it's such a strange accent. But then I started seeing people online who are like from Hungary and Lithuania and places like that. And I mean, they have YouTube channels and people watch them. And it took that for me to finally go, you know what, maybe the accent isn't that big a deal. And it's fine, because if people from Lithuania and Hungary and stuff can make channels and have people watch them, then maybe people wouldn't be so put off by the accent, even if they can't fully place where it's from. Generally, I stroke the lines towards myself, not away, like the reverse of peeling a potato. I've never thought of it that way, but if I draw from myself. I'm sitting here and I draw like that. I stroke this way. That's the natural way my hand curves. I'm right-handed. So I'm literally using the curve of my hand to do that. If I do it this way, which is towards myself, I can do it, but it's a little clumsier and it doesn't come out as organic or as fast. I have to be more controlled if I do it that way. Oops, that's an eraser. There we go. Oopsie. That Puff said it, the screen tablet, it's a game changer. I've been surviving as a freelancer artist for a long time, and I've always had a small Wacom tablet and struggled with lines overall. Yeah, like, I was very fortunate. I had a certain amount of money for a birthday, and I only needed a little bit more to afford the Huan, and I ran a donation pool on Tumblr, and people over there helped me fund this tablet I'm using at the moment, and I agree, it has completely changed things, especially with line work, whereas in the past with my Wacom I would have to do lines like this in short strokes. With the screen tablet I can just do a singular line in one stroke, and it cuts down on so much time, and my wrist can go for much longer without me feeling like I'm straining it or causing a injury to myself, which is something I struggled with a lot until I had this tablet. I'm an American and I watch Kid Icarus, so I don't mind at all. I think it would be very boring if everyone sounded the same accent-wise. I agree, and yet for some reason I thought it would be a bigger problem for other people. But I do have a tendency to overthink things, just in general. So it might have been a non-issue that I was just overthinking and being like, oh, this is a major problem, when it literally didn't matter. Which is entirely possible. Ah yes, self-consciousness because of your accent was way cuter. Yes, that happens and is a very understandable struggle. I'm also scared of making my first videos because I'm a non-native English speaker. Yeah, exactly. I went English high school, but I speak a different language at home. But it's kind of the same thing in a way. Even if you're fluent in English, you're like, well, I don't sound like the majority of big name YouTubers. So what if I come across as very strange, or people get thrown off and then they decide not to click and not to keep watching the video? Like, again, I tend to overthink these things, but I think it's also part of wanting to put forward a good product and wanting to let people know what you want to talk about is worth listening to. And I think that's also part of it. It's not so much yourself getting insulted. That's never really been a problem for me. What it is with me is I want to make a good product. And I think that ties into work. Because if you don't turn in a good product for your director, you're making a headache for yourself, because then you double your workload. I'm going to show you guys this video that I've got about animation in general, because I found it again last night, and it is just the perfect example of animation. And I was watching it again last night and I realized that I need to actually upload it to YouTube, even though it's not a video I made myself, simply because I don't know where else this video is online, and I'm very worried that I'm like the only person who has a copy of it, and if something happens to that file, that video is going to just disappear. I don't see the issue with your accent either. I actually quite enjoy it. It's one of the things that drew me to your channel. Oh, thank you! Alongside your extensive knowledge of vintage magical girl shows. Thank you so much. I imagine people saying stuff, yeah, your point is solid, but you're wrong because your accent is kind of gay, but not enough and stuff, and doesn't have enough cheese on top of it. Yeah, it sounds insane when you say it out loud, but I think when you're thinking it over like me, you're like, oh, but it's such a problem because it's so different and people aren't used to it. And you just psych yourself out of making videos. I'm not American, but most people I watch are, so I talk both British English but also American English, with my accent being a non-native English speaker. Yeah, like, my accent is very much South African, but the South Africans here say that it's very American, because I studied in Canada for 2 years and I, again, watch a lot of American YouTubers. So my accent is all kind of a lot of things all mixed together. I think that might also be it, because there's a big stigma in my country of not speaking American. You know, you have to speak the Queen's English. So that might also be part of it. That there's this imprinting of speaking properly. What's your favorite vintage magical girl? It's so easy to say Sailor Moon just because I love it so much. But within Sailor Moon itself, I love Sailor Moon herself, but my favorite girl is actually Sailor Uranus. And I'm going to say it that way because I don't like Uranus and I don't like Uranus. So Sailor Uranus is probably my favorite girl in that whole show. I love that character so much. Partly because she's problematic and she's complicated. But also, Revolutionary Girl Utena is my favorite anime of all time. But the problem there is you can't say who your favorite character is in Revolutionary Girl Utena, because the second you do that, it reveals something a little bit too personal about yourself, just because of how that show is written and how deep the symbolism is in there. So if you reveal which character you like the most, it says something about you as a person. That being said, Anthe is my favorite character. In High Guardian Spice, I find it funny that the cutest girl is actually Snapdragon. His mermaid cosplay at the party looks like fan-made stuff with a lot of love in it. Yeah, like, Snapdragon's design is really great. And I'm saying he just because I haven't gotten to the part where she discovers that she's actually trans. That's also why I keep saying he in the videos. Because the second that becomes a plot point, I'm going to revert to using she. And I'm always worried people think I'm being an asshole, like I'm misgendering her on purpose. But it's like, no, I swear, I'm doing a thing. I know what I'm doing. Just stick with me, guys. I'm gonna grab another drink of water. Oh, where is it? Oh, there it is. I think I've been watching people react to Nightwish for like a solid 2 weeks now. And I think part of it is I had this concept that the only React channels that exist are like the channel called React. And I hate that channel because what they do is they tell the people who react to things to react in a certain way. And if they don't, then they don't get featured in the video. So the reactors are very fake and it's very cringe. And I thought that's what reaction channels were. And then I got recommended a reaction channel that was just a normal person. It was Ashley Burton. And she grew up in an extremely religious household, so she didn't see any movies growing up. She only watched Disney and that was it. So now she's exposing herself to film outside of her comfort zone. And she's just hilarious. And I've just been absolutely obsessed watching people react to things because I used to like fantasize, what if we could go back in time and get Walt Disney and show him modern Disney films like The Little Mermaid and Beauty and the Beast? Like, what would his reaction be? And it turns out there's an entire subculture on YouTube of people reacting to movies for the very first time. So of course that's my absolute crack. And then I saw people reacting to Nightwish's Ghost Love Score. And I've just been watching vocal coaches react to it like over and over and over again. And as a result, I've learned about this whole thing of talking from your throat, which is what I'm currently doing, and talking from your diaphragm. So a mic stand is the next thing I want to do. And I've said in the past I want to get a mic arm, but I think a stand is a better idea because then I'm standing up and I can speak better, so I don't put such strain on my throat. I got a weird request I have. Can you say, where is Jessica Hyde? Sure. Where is Jessica Hyde? Like that? I hate doing backgrounds, sorry. Yeah, I used to hate backgrounds and I used to be awful at them until I started doing the webcomic, which is on hiatus for the moment, and it has been for quite a while. But doing the webcomic literally forced me to learn how to do backgrounds because there was no way to cheat it whatsoever. I absolutely had to learn how to do backgrounds. So the only reason I got halfway decent at it was out of necessity. And even then, I'm not somebody who could apply to be a background painter for a show. I just don't have the skill level for it. But yeah, React sucks ass. They're all a bunch of out-of-touch arseholes being stupid to kids. Yeah, it's not cool. And then they like tried to copyright the word React on YouTube so that nobody else could use it. And the whole thing just put a very bad taste in my mouth. But turns out that if you are authentic and just yourself, that it's actually good content. Thank you. Too much feelings on it, but it was great. You see, it's the main catchphrase of the series Utopia. Ah, okay. I can do it again with less feeling. Where is Jessica Hyde? Like that if it's a UK show. Have you seen the video from Daft Pino on High Guardian Spice? He goes over what happened behind the scenes. It gives a lot of context about what really happened. I have not, but the only reason why is because I'm doing this series myself, and I don't want to accidentally repeat what other people have said in videos because I've watched their content and I'm parroting what I've heard because I agree with it. So I have actually not seen any videos on High Guardian Spice, just despite really, really wanting to. Just because I don't want to accidentally take their opinion and make it my own just because I agree with it. But I also felt that focusing on the show itself and not focusing on any of the behind the scenes, meddling and disaster of management is a take which not a lot of people would do just because the management is such a hot topic on its own that the content of the show as a product often gets lost in the shuffle. And I'm like, even if it had a perfect behind the scenes management, even if it was made perfectly, was distributed perfectly, if nothing went wrong, it would still be a bad show. And I felt not enough people were focusing on the fact that it's just a bad show from a writing standpoint. And that it's not bad because it has LGBTQ representation in it. It's a bad show because it was made badly. And these are the reasons why it was badly made. Oh, about the tablet. The girl that told me to get a better tablet with a screen on it and stuff, she goes by the name Myopic Veracity. She's an absolute sweetheart. She told me that getting a screen tablet was a total game changer. She's also the best artist/painter I know, so having her saying that is making me want to save up and get a decent tablet. You see big artists here on YouTube and they tell you you don't need an expensive tablet, but they all use one. They usually say you don't need a better tool, but they never draw with a small one. That is true. And although it is true that I think why people say that is because what they actually mean is buying expensive equipment is not going to make you a better artist. If you can't draw, then buying the best tablet on the market is not going to make you better at drawing. But you can't make a good product if you're working with crap or if you're working with a handicap, and that's just a matter of fact. You have to keep up with industry standards, especially if you're working as a professional. And what professional means is you're getting paid for your product. That is what being professional is at the end of the day. Sorry, I'm talking over myself. It's got nothing to do with skill level. So you have to keep up with the technology. But the technology is not going to make you better at working on its own. You have to put the time in. But I think also because they say that a lot of people who do need high quality products like digital art are like, okay, well, I guess I'll just keep using my tiny Wacom. And the reason why I'm not delivering as good a product as I want is because I'm bad at drawing, when that's not actually the case. You're not going to do the Sistine Chapel if all you're using is Crayolas, you know. The whole plotline of High Guardian Spice just feels so rough, drafty, and why it's frustratingly subpar. There are people in the comments saying things like, Rodriguez has been working on the story since he was in middle school, and yet he had nothing to show for it in terms of world building or plot. All he had was slice of life scenarios and like Sage and Rosemary's designs, and that was all he had. So it's one of those things. I kind of want to ask him what his thought process was, but at the same time I don't, because I have a feeling he'd only get defensive with the kind of questions I would ask, and I kind of get a bit of an oh no about interacting with him just because I'm being so critical of his work. It's also why I'm not putting any of these drawings I'm doing in live streams of his characters on Tumblr or Twitter, because I'm afraid he'll see them, and I'm like, no, I'm following the prime directive. I don't want to interfere with a developing culture. Please just let me observe and report my findings. That's all I'm here for. I think I've said something similar before in your previous stream, though. You might have. My focus is just not the best. It's all over the place sometimes. Do this. That. There we go. Oh, I still need to do her legs. Alright, because the axe is in front of the legs. Oh, of course. I have a lozenge to take here, but I'm worried of taking it while I'm talking, that I'll just end up choking, because that's exactly the kind of thing I can see happening to myself. I think a good analogy with the product you're using, like the quality of your tools, is you need a ruler to draw a straight line, if that makes any sense. And if you don't have a ruler, you're not going to draw a straight line. And I think it's similar. Oops, sorry. Dropped my phone. I'm taking your word on that. Longest time I thought I sucked at Photoshop because it didn't have the brushes I want, but then I got iPad doing better results. Yeah, exactly. Also, I find that Clip Studio Paint has better ink brushes than Photoshop ever had. I had to download a whole bunch of custom brushes for Photoshop to even get close to what I wanted, and then in Clip Studio Paint they just come standard. It's like, here are the brushes you want. Makes me wonder if High Garden Spice was just supposed to be a slice of life fantasy rather than an action-adventure one with an overarching plot. It probably would have done better if it was just a slice of life show, and I'm wondering if that might not be Crunchyroll. Again, because they had a certain vision for what they wanted based on their reputation, and then they kind of forced these inexperienced showrunners to make what they said. And Rodriguez just kind of nodded and went, oh yes, of course we can do that. It might be. I'm just speculating. Oh, forgot her arm. There we go. And I realized that it's not so much different in that I'm not very experienced as others. So yeah, I guess so. It does take a certain amount of time with a program. Ah yes, on the old design tweet, he said the first pitch happened in 2013, and I must say, he's had years to have a solid script or story on hand. I mean, even J.K. Rowling made changes to the books between pitches. Yeah, it's very messy. It's all just very messy and poorly thought out. Oh, hi there. Oh, hi, no one in particular. Imagine that in your English exam they ask, so what's your opinion on recently bad animated cartoons, which people say are all propaganda and no real flavor, and you go, my time has come. I guess so. Axe Gremlin? Yeah, we're drawing Amaryllis, and I have just finished the sketch layer, unless I've forgotten something again. Not really, this axe handle is just kind of in the way. I'll just give her some definition here to her wrist. It doesn't really work, but it's what we've got. So we're going to slap some colors on her. lock this layer, make that blue. To the pin. Again, there is a paint bucket function where you can fill from a previous layer, but it's given me more problems than it's helped solve, so I tend not to use it. I tend to just slap color on like this and then use the eraser and magic wand to clear it afterwards. Because using the paint bucket tool, it causes more problems than it solves. What do you think would be the line between art fixing and, well, trying your own spin on it? I'm not sure. I think that would be a case-by-case basis, and I'm going to say that a lot because I think that's true for most things. There are some redesigns of High Guardian Spice where it's very clear that these characters are the High Guardian Spice characters, and then there are other redesigns where I'm like, you might as well just change the pink for Rosemary to purple and you would have a completely unique character. And that's actually a functional way of making new properties. That's a perfectly perfect, like, normal way to do things. And a good example is JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, because even though the story is completely different, the early JoJo mangas, I mean, those are just Kenshiro from Fist of the North Star. It's literally just Kenshiro. And he just changed certain parts of the design, and then after time, the JoJo characters are very, very obviously JoJo characters. Who drinks coffee while drawing? I can't because it's late at night. If I drink coffee now, it'll keep me awake for the entire night due to the caffeine. What I do to make the bucket tool work is select all outside and fill it with black, and using it as a sort of matte base. This prevents the bucket from creating awkward unfilled spaces. I'm gonna have to try that in the future. That might actually be a good move. Or I could do it with the magic wand, where I could select it outside the space and then tell it to reverse the selection. Yeah, maybe I'll do that. Hold on. Add this. And I'm just going to clear this and then select inverse and then hide the lines. Let's try it like that. Might make my life easier. Oops. There we go. Yeah, thanks Nox, I saw. Because I'm torn on people trying to improve High Guardian Spice elements, I'm in support of trying to make it less sexist, but I also swore a principle to scribble mustaches on the works of art fixers. Yeah, it's very difficult. I think it depends really, because I don't watch a lot of those drama channels that cover people who do art fixes on Twitter, mostly because it's a very messy subject and it actually, like, honestly upsets me. Not because they are changing art, but just because of the, like the doxing and the hate comments that people throw around. It's like a very nasty, toxic atmosphere, so I avoid videos on it just because it makes me upset. But then I watch YouTubers who do rewrites. I watch some YouTubers who have been rewriting the plot of Ruby to make it make sense and be consistent, and it's so good. And because I've never actually watched Ruby, I listen to their rewrites, and I'm like, I'm going to accept that this is the canon story just because it's so good, and I can't see how watching the worst version that's actually the show would be enjoyable just because I enjoy the rewrite. And I know that there's somebody, it's Unicorn of War, I forget what his first name is, but he's doing a rewrite of the Winx later seasons that got really bad apparently. He's doing a rewrite of those, and that kind of thing I quite like. But I think the difference is that people who do rewrites of shows tend to be fans who have fallen out of love with the product just because it got really bad. So they tend to be people who love the thing already and they understand what made it good, rather than somebody who said, you drew something badly, I'm going to make it less bad. which is a morality question, and then you just get into a really murky situation, and you have people like attacking each other from a moral standpoint, and it just gets really nasty. I turned my head to your drawing and considered impressed. I like the cat knot you gave her. Thank you. Yeah, she kind of has this expression in one episode, and people use it as a reaction shot, and it really fits her. I quite like it. Art fix is kind of rude. Yeah, I see a lot of people who do the High Guardian Spice quote-unquote art fix. They call it a redesign, which I think is a much better term, because you're not pretending as if your version is morally superior to the original. You're just like, I'm taking what was there and I'm redesigning it. And it's like, fair enough. You can't argue with that. Calling it redesigning is less of a problem, but the whole art fix sounds so wrong. Yeah, a lot of it is posturing. It's like saying, look how much more morally superior I am compared to you. That's kind of what it boils down to. Also, one thing I noticed about Prototype High Guardian Spice, it seems like the show wasn't originally supposed to be a magical school series, but rather be about the characters being mythical creature bounty hunters. Maybe. Again, I've been avoiding a lot of these things just because I want to focus on the show itself, so I'm very uninformed. That might be a better setup, quite frankly. At least it would make it less of a Little Witch Academia ripoff. I know I keep comparing it to Harry Potter, but I've heard people say it's more like Little Witch Academia. So on a less controversial topic, would it be considered plugging if I'm recommending the works of other artists, creators on here? I think that's a good question. I think maybe don't do it during the stream. However, once the stream is over, make a comment on this video and link the artist there. I think that might be better because it kind of stops the conversation from derailing and taking attention away from the stream and having people click off. But it also allows you to show, oh, these are the artists I think are really cool. And I'd be okay with that, if that's all right. I've always envisioned how I rewrite the story to Sonic Adventure, when I wonder if I should just do my own original story instead of taking someone else's story. I'm not sure what you mean with that, so you might have to explain how Sonic Adventure ties into it. Oh, I see. Sorry. I've always envisioned how I rewrite the story of Sonic Adventure. Ah, okay, I'm with you now. Sorry, that was my fault, not yours. Yeah, I've seen people do that, but only in fanfic form. But I think it's really cool. I actually did a comic concept of Sonic 3, the Sega Genesis one, if it had a narrative, like if the characters actually spoke and had banter. And I lost steam with it, but that was quite fun to do. And what's funny is the way I drew the characters ended up looking a lot like what the movie redesigns look like. And I was quite chuffed about that. I'm like, hey, that's how I used to draw them. I don't have the art for those redesigns on this laptop though, because I had to get a new laptop recently because my old one let me down. Art fixes is something Sage would do to Rose's drawings. That's true. That's actually true. She would jump in and be like, these are actually not historically accurate. Here, let me draw it to properly represent the history period that you are trying to capture. And then she'd just do it without asking permission. She's that kind of character. All your ideas are fanfics, because in my ideas everyone dies. That's great. Oops, wrong layer. Oopsie. tablet does work a little bit different than the pen tablet, so sometimes it goes thicker than I mean it to. But on the whole, it's such an upgrade, I must say. Sage is so condescending. Yeah, like, I get what they were going for with her character. They wanted her to be the nerd. You know what they wanted? They wanted her to be Hermione. And again, I don't mean to constantly compare it to Harry Potter, but that's really what they wanted, especially Hermione in the very first Harry Potter. You know, like, it's not Leviosa, it's Leviosa, or however the quote goes. Like, that's what they wanted Sage's character to be. And they wanted it to be that way because they wanted Rosemary to be like the, ooh, shiny, like, lol, so random character. Which isn't that bad an idea in terms of character balancing. It's a good idea, I just don't think they pulled it off very well. That just gives me flashbacks of the minor convulsions I have when somebody mislabels P38 Lightning. But I don't think they wanted Sage to be a pig, or at least not all the writers wanted that. I don't think they wanted that at all. I just think that they pushed her too far, that's all. And I think that maybe they didn't read back how she was coming across, or they didn't get enough outsider, well, you can't really do outsider opinion when you're working for a studio, but they didn't look over what they wrote and see how it looked when you looked at every episode. Again, they wrote from a very episode per episode perspective, and they knew what they wanted to carry through to later episodes, but they didn't take a step back and look at what her character came across as when you put all of it together. But again, there are certain people who were writers on the show who are not very good people. And again, I don't want to name names because I don't want to get in trouble, but that is a fact and one can't ignore it. So there's also that. They wanted her to be the nerd, but someone on the writing team watched too much Angry Video Game Nerd, and she spent all her time studying Mike Matei and made Sage out to be like that. Oh no! Doesn't the industry usually have test audiences? No, not with animation, because with animation you can't really go back and fix things once you've reached final animation stage, unless you have the budget for it, which most things don't. I do know they did a test audience for The Little Mermaid when it came out originally, but again, that's because it's Disney and they have Disney money. And even then it would be a unfinished product, so it'll be part storyboard, things like that. But for a low budget TV show, no, you won't do test audiences just because it's not in the budget to go back and reanimate things. You don't have that money, even if you outsource. It's just, you would have to have buckets of cash. Just because of how long animation takes, and the longer animation takes, the more money it costs you. I do know that because of a test audience for The Little Mermaid, they almost cut part of your world. The original sequence of her in her grotto singing Part of Your World, they almost cut that entire song because the test audience didn't like it and the children found it boring. Imagine what a world that would be, where they said, no, the 5-year-olds in the audience don't like Part of Your World, so we're just going to remove that song from the story. What, really? Yes! It's horrifying. And if you watch that movie again, during that sequence, there's a lot of scenes where you see Sebastian running around doing something funny, and I am convinced the reason those scenes are in that sequence is because they wanted to make it funnier for children, because the test audience didn't like it. One interesting thing about the discourse around High Guardian Spice is how many people dislike it, but also for many different and opposing reasons. Yeah, and that's part of what makes critiquing it interesting, is it's complex in why it's bad. It's not like The Nut Shack, where you look at The Nut Shack and you're like, I can see why this is bad, it's not that deep. But with High Guardian Spice, it's deep, it's deep. It's broken in such a complex way. I guess it's a bit like The Room with Tommy Wiseau. The reason that movie is interesting is because of the complex way in which it's just wrong and why it's so strange. Are test subjects really needed? Test subjects? I think you mean test audiences, but yes, test subjects is more accurate. Are test subjects really needed? Because I always think of how the Mega Man cartoon was made. Yeah, it depends. Because test audiences are essentially just the CEOs of the distributor wanting to see whether they'll make their money back. And usually, if they trust the project or they trust the director enough, they won't do a test screening because they know it doesn't matter if the movie is bad or not, it's going to make its money, so they don't need to do a test screening. I saw some that even hated on Parsley. They said she was just the exposition character. Honestly, she's very interesting in episode 4 where you get to learn about her conflict with her family, and then she disappears as a character completely. She's like in the background and has no function. So that's also a valid complaint to have, because after her initial argument with her parents about joining the academy, she's got nothing to do. They don't have anything deeper for her character. So she just wanders around and doesn't do much. So that's not a bad opinion or criticism to have, because it's accurate. I guess it just depends on how much that bothers you. Hasipa is great. Thank you. She sounds just the same on scripted content and on screen. Crazy. Is there a plot twist here? There's none in your content scripted. I used to not script my content, but because I have a tendency to go on tangents, or something would make me think of something else, I can ramble on about something unrelated for like an hour. And I realized doing the script for the 1930s animation video that I need to really tighten down what I'm talking about and for how long. Otherwise that video would just go on and on and on and wouldn't have enough structure and would just be a giant mess. So it was essentially, I was essentially forced to start using scripts, because otherwise it would just be me non-stop talking about things I find interesting because I find them interesting. Varsley looks like a Rule 36 Toon Link, but thick. Yeah, that's actually not a bad comparison. And she is good. Like, I genuinely enjoy her character, even when she stops having a purpose. I think it also has to do with her voice. I really enjoy like the tomboyish voice that she has. And I don't know, she's just pleasant. Like, it feels nice watching her. She makes you feel good just because she's so nice herself. Also on female dwarves, would it be acceptable compromise to give them thick sideburns that merge into half bangs? I think so, because if you look at not the Lord of the Rings movies, but the Hobbit movies, which aren't good, let's just get that out of the way. They're one of those movies, they're not great, but if you like them, that's fair. But they have dwarf women in the background, and they have sideburns, like thick mutton chops, but they don't have full beards. And I'm like, you know what, that's fair. I would go for full beard, but I also understand wanting to be a little bit more obvious with the difference. And I'm like, hey, at least you did something. I think the problem with Parsley is that 1, they wrapped up her arc way too freaking soon, and 2, the writers didn't tie her character to the main conflict of the plot too well. Yeah, it's difficult because I like episode 4. I think they could have had that conflict with her parents and wrapped it up, but they needed to give her more. They needed to give her more to influence her role as a guardian. One conflict may be her being protective of her family and not wanting to lose them to a danger, like something like that, where you can make her family her weakness, because good writing, and this is true of real life as well, a person's biggest weakness ends up being their biggest strength. And if you watch the movie, which is based on a true story, Moneyball, it's about a person who made a baseball team based entirely on playing statistics and numbers, and it's very, very interesting. And he is a brilliant baseball manager, but he has a failed marriage, and the reason why his marriage failed is the same reason why he's such a good baseball manager. So if you take Parsley and do something similar with her, where her family is her big strength, but it's also her big weakness, automatically you have a very interesting story you can work with there. Look at her standing right there, menacingly, thickly. She looks like she lost her Minish cap and wants to figure out how to play 4 Swords on GBA as a solo player. It's true, I didn't realize how much she looked like Toon Link until you mentioned it. And yet somehow I'm not mad at that. I think it's because she wears lederhosen. So she has a unique setup. She's not just wearing a green tunic. Again, see, that's like character influence, which is fine. Because, yeah, she does look like Toon Link, but she's not being Toon Link. She's very clearly a different character. Oh, it's actually her... These things, the outside bands that are silver. I just realized I didn't draw her wand. Whoops. Maybe I'll add that. I'll see. Not gonna lie, I wonder if Parsley is supposed to be Germanic coded. Maybe. I mean, she does wear the lederhosen, and dwarves are, like their core concept comes from that area of the world because they come from Wagner operas. Like, you know the song Flight of the Valkyries? I forget which opera that is because I'm not very into opera. But that opera specifically, which deals with Loki and the forging of this ring made by the Dwarven Lords, that's a German opera. So simply being a dwarf, she's already tied to Germanic folklore already. I don't know if the creators know that though. I think they might have just based her on like standard fantasy dwarf. That she loves to tinker with everything around her and is really good at it, but doesn't quite understand how to work with people on a higher level beyond her bubbly personality. See, again, that's an interesting flaw to have. And you know the folklore around the herb parsley? It's surprisingly morbid. I don't actually. You'll have to tell me. But yeah, the reason that Tolkien has dwarves and such in his books is because he wrote The Lord of the Rings. Oh, I didn't color that. With them being highly influenced by Germanic operas. And I think it's because he was translating those. I'm not too sure. He spoke like 8 languages or something. It's commonly associated with death. See, again, you could do something with that within the show itself. You could use these elements which are right there. Ray recently confirmed that Sage is Asian and Rosemary is Mediterranean. Does that mean that the fantasy world they come from has the Mediterranean? And that it has Asia? Because unless those countries exist, that doesn't make a lot of sense. I joke, I kid, because one of my favorite fantasy authors, Ursula Le Guin, made a point of her main character being based on Taoism, like the Asian belief, and Native American, I guess folklore is the wrong word, traditions. And Ged, the main character, Sparrowhawk, he is very, very pointedly described as having Native American features, including a darker skin tone. And Ursula Le Guin is on record saying that any book that depicts Sparrowhawk as light-skinned on the cover is automatically unfaithful to her version of the story. So I'm joking, but it is an interesting way to describe your characters from a fantasy setting where these countries don't exist. I'm gonna get some coffee. You guys want anything? I want a cappuccino, but it's gonna keep me up. That some said that its roots, Parsley's roots, grew up all the way to hell. So maybe Parsley's family line actually goes back to a sort of atrocity. It just makes me think of the original Dragon Age. Like, what's the dwarven city's name? I know what it is. I'm just blanking. The dwarven city that's underground, or is something. Like, you could tie into that. Like, that city being so close to, like, lava streams and stuff. There's a story you could build there. Wait, what? Wait, what? What did I say? What did I say, Dog Frost? Orzammar, that was the name of the city. I think. The Dwarven city. About Parsley Street. Yeah, I didn't know that either. That's what no one in particular says. I'll believe it though. Yeah, no, I've never heard of that, but I'll look it up because that sounds accurate. I'm gonna close this because I don't need this anymore. Like, flower language in general. I know parsley isn't a flower. At least I don't think so. I don't think it flowers. It might. I don't know. But I know that all the symbolism of plants can be crazy. Then again, this show is called High Guardian Spice and every single character is named after a herb. So, I don't know why we're expecting that much out of it in terms of... Oh, hold on, my phone's battery is low. Let me just plug it in. There we go. I don't know why we're expecting that much of it when it can't even get the names of its own characters to fall in line with the title. Ever since you found out Parsley's dad's name is Sorrel, it makes you think of another character. I missed what her dad's called. But, I mentioned it earlier, I'm terrible with names, guys. You guys don't understand. When I was in high school, there was a girl named Shannon, and for 6 months, I called her Ashley. And that's because every time I called her Ashley, she'd answer me, even though that wasn't her name. And it took me a solid 6 months before I realized I'd been calling her the wrong name. I'm actually not going to draw her wand bracelet just because my throat is aching and I don't want to extend the stream too long because then I'm really going to feel it tomorrow. I will add it before I upload it to the community tab though, because I don't think it really adds that much if you guys just sit here and watch me like make a ring with a bunch of designs on it. I don't know, you tell me what you guys think. I'm literally only thinking of cutting it short because my throat hurts, that's all. I've plugged my phone in because its battery is going low, but I don't know if it gets signal when it's here. Hold on. Yeah, okay. Shannon equals Ashley. I'm bad with names, but I draw a blank instead. It's embarrassing having to ask twice or thrice or more times what a person's name, but since I had a few friends, I thought I was special like that. Yeah, like... I don't know, most of the time I just forget, but often my brain will reassign a different name for something and I'll just run with it and be like, oh yeah, no, that's exactly what it's called. I did this when I reviewed the My Little Pony movie and my brain told me that the town's name is Baltimore, and I acknowledge in the review that that's not actually the name of the town, but I kept calling it that anyway because that's all my brain would tell me when I'm like, what's the town called again? And it would be like, oh, it's called Baltimore. And I'm like, no, it's not. It really isn't. It's also like how I kept calling the triumvirate, whatever it's called. The triumvirate, I kept calling them tribunal. Just because I'm like, triumvirate's a stupid name. It's a dumb name. I'm just going to call them the tribunal. They serve the same function anyway. They're this shadowy group of people who are secretly running things. Baltimore, yeah. I think there was a town called Baltimore in the My Little Pony Friendship is Magic show. See, those names I can kind of remember because they were all puns. Like you had Manhattan. I know that was one. Which was just New York. The trigonograph. Somebody in the comments said triumvirate is like, it's something that actually exists within, not fiction, but it's like a society or something like that. It's something that Rodriguez didn't come up with himself. And I said in the comments that it reminded me of the use of Scarborough Fair, where it's this pre-established thing and Rodriguez just went, oh, that's something that exists, I can use that, and didn't do anything with it further than that. So he took the name and nothing else. No, not the triads. The triads are the mother, what is it, the Virgin Mother and Crone who run the school. The triumvirates are the secret bad guys who supposedly are the main antagonists of the entire show, even though they're only mentioned for the first time in episode 9 out of 12. The writing is so bad when you remember that Madoka Magica did the exact same, it had the exact same amount of episodes to tell a story, 12, and it did a masterful job. Like every episode of Madoka Magica had a very clear intention of why it was there and why it existed where it existed. Like no time was wasted in that show. The Chinese mafia, I know, somebody pointed that out and I was like, oh no, you're right. So yeah, the triads are running the school in High Guardian Spice. And now I think what's left is these rings here. And again, I'm not going to do shading on her, just because that takes on like 2 or 3 hours, but I am going to just give her some slight shadow under her chin and things like that. Yeah, see, that worked a lot better. You've saved me a step, Nox. Because now I don't need to like select everything outside and delete the spill and things like that. I also want to give her eyes some slight shading so that she looks less dead inside. I want to watch Madoka Magica, but it's confusing on where to start. There's a lot of, I don't know, sequels, mid-course, reboots. Where do I start? Start with the original 12-episode anime series from 2011. It's called, I call it as, I know it as Mahou Shoujo Madoka Magica, which is the Japanese title, but I believe its quote-unquote English title is Puella Magi Madoka Magica, I believe is what it is. Yes, Puella Magi Madoka Magica. That is where you start. Everything that came afterwards was kind of a response to how successful that anime was. Because I don't know if it was a manga at first, but I don't think it was. I believe it was an anime first and everything else came afterwards. So just start with that 12 episodes. It's self-contained as well. The stuff that comes afterwards, it does tie tangentially into it, but you can watch the 12 episodes and accept them as a story, and you don't actually need to watch anything else because it's self-contained. And that's why I often make the comparison, because it manages to tell a complete story without you needing to do homework to figure out what's going on. By the way, are you going to draw Snapdragon in one of your future streams? I think I will do Snapdragon next. When I drew Sue from Grandia, I just was worried that we were getting into a pattern of being kind of just negative all the time. So I wanted a bit of a break from that. But I don't think we're really being that negative anymore, because we've got other things to talk about and not just repeat the show is bad and it becoming like a hate stream. So I think I'll do Snapdragon next, because he's also a character, or she's also a character that's really, really cool and well written and deserves a better show. Let's do the shading here. Plot idea. Snap's macho family visits and sees Amaryllis with the family axe. They get letters of him contemplating transition, and thus they mistake her for Snap. That's cute. That's actually a good idea, because it's not like hateful. It's not making anyone out to be the bad guy or like being bigoted or something. It's just like a really funny miscommunication. And what would be funny is if Amaryllis just kind of goes along with it. Like, she pretends she is Snapdragon because that's absolutely something she would do. That would be amazing. Oh, I'd love that. They chose Magical Girl in Latin for the English title. Yeah, that's why I'm like, quote-unquote English title, because it's not English, it's in Latin, but that's what it goes by in English. Ah, I see, it's from 2011. With a date, it's easier to find in the sea. Thank you. Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, I tend to always give dates because of that reason. Especially because I'm into film, and there are a lot of movies that are either remakes of each other or they use the same title. So I've just gotten used to just saying what something's date is, because it makes everything easier. Caraway seems to be the person that runs the school. The triads appear like 2 or 3 times to give brief speeches. The school is in flames at some point, and I remember wondering where they were. Yeah, apparently they're not there. Like, the entire school is going down in flames and they're just gone. I heard somebody think that maybe they are more part of the town, but they are stated as being in charge of the school. Again, this shows writing. Nobody thought anything through. Because making Caraway the headmaster would just make more sense, quite frankly. And I think it would just make everyone happier, including Rodriguez, just to be the headmaster. And he kind of has that role when he speaks to Snapdragon anyway. Maybe they thought of that too late and they had already written in the triad. Trying to figure out why the show does certain things is a recipe for madness, quite frankly. High Guardian Spice is secretly the best anime of all time. We just need to deconstruct it and study it enough. It evades our comprehension. Soon people will be calling it the Dark Souls of animes. It's true. It's true. It operates on a level far beyond that of us mere mortals. We don't understand it. See, that's the real problem. It operates on a higher level, and we just can't grasp it. That's what's going on. And even with the transition, they want Snap to still be strong, but they leave it up to him to decide what it means to be strong. Caraway is basically the Dumbledore for High Guardian Spice. Yeah, exactly. I called him, in the first episode, I called him the Snape did nothing wrong character, which is also what he kind of comes across as. He comes across as somebody who really, really, really liked Snape and wanted to completely excuse the horrible things Snape did. So they wrote a character that's basically Snape, but as a good guy. That's also what it comes across as to a certain degree. Wait, I have a brush that I really like. This one. And I'll make the underlayer this, so it gives off this thing, which I forget the name of. Yeah. Oh wait, no, I still want the hair because I need to give her this shine. This thing. Oops. Also, yes, I totally cheat the hair shading because it looks so good when you use these brushes. Look at that, it looks so good. So yeah, I cheat hair shades. I don't draw them by hand. I just use the preset. Nah, I'm not going to do the second one. There we go. Now I just want to put some color on her face so she doesn't look anemic. Oh, and I wanted to do the shadow under her chin. Blend, blend brush, blend, and eraser, just to get rid of the spill here. See, I could keep going and like add lots of shading and cast shadows and things, but again, if I do that, we're going to be here for another hour or two and my throat can't take it. I just want to do this for the axe. Because I want to, because I have that disease where I want something to look good. It's like, no, it has to look good. And then I just keep going forever. So there we go. Actually, let me add... See, this is the problem. Let me add a shadow underneath her. And put this to multiply. There we go. Oh, I know, I'll do it this way. Here's a cheat if you want to do shadows very quickly, very easily. Make an ellipse, fill it, and then go to motion blur and set it to horizontally and make it really strong. And you can change the angle slightly. There we go. And then just turn it down, and then you've got more or less a shadow going. And then if you throw a what's this thing called? Gaussian blur? This one. Just a slight at 6. There we go. And then you've got a shadow. And then if you want, you can go slightly darker and just throw some slight darker patches directly under the character. Here we go. Easy shadow. Oops. But there we are. We have drawn the best character, and because I remembered to warm up before we started, she actually came out pretty decent. So I'm gonna call the drawing that. I must actually save. Let me do that. There we go. Before we have a disaster. Bicolor hair. Yes. Let me just catch up with chat. Oh, yeah, here we go. Carrie is basically that after somewhat recently finding out about the literal cult around Snape, I feel it deserves to be stated. Snape was not daddy. Alan Rickman was daddy. I said when the Harry Potter movies first came out, and I was still a child, but I said that Alan Rickman as Snape accidentally ruined that character because Alan Rickman is so charismatic and likable that he made Snape charismatic and likable, which is not what the character is in the book. Like, you are supposed to hate that character in the book. Like, it's sitting right there next to the meaning of life and what God really stands for. It might as well be part of the true Da Vinci Code. It's what Jesus did before resurrecting 3 days. No, you know what? It sits next to the Dune book series. Like, the metaphysics of Dune, that's what it's comparable to. I'm back. Ooh, my favorite part, the shading. Yeah, sadly I'm not going to go too in depth in the shading because again it adds about 2 or 3 extra hours onto the drawing process, which is fine except my voice can't take it. My wrist can take it, but my voice can't. Is that a High Guardian Spice reference? Now you see shading and coloring are my favorite parts of the drawing because I feel that color can really bring a piece to life. Yeah, no, I agree. I do enjoy it. I prefer line art, which is my favorite part, but I really do enjoy the shading because that's when you see the whole thing kind of come together. I just can't do it with my voice. When I get my voice more used to speaking for this long, I'll probably do longer sessions and we'll get into like detailed drawing and shading and things like that. Sometimes I just want to jump to color even before I'm done with the line art. What you can do, but you say you have a quite sketchy style. Otherwise what you can do is you can set your sketch lines to multiply, and if you lock the transparency on the layer and just make them black or whatever, you can go straight to coloring without having to clean up the sketch. I've done that, where I just kind of clean the sketch up as much as possible and then just go straight to coloring. Nice cheat you got there. Conspiracy theory. Amaryllis is the High Guardian Spice version of Amethyst. I saw a comment that made me laugh really hard. I actually included it in the video very quickly, where somebody on Tumblr said that Amaryllis is Peridot from... No, not Peridot. I think it was Amethyst. Amaryllis is Amethyst from Steven Universe if she was written well. And I was like, that is such a harsh comment. That's so mean. She reminds me more of Peridot than Amethyst. Yeah, she does. Which makes sense because, again, I think Peridot is one of the best characters in Steven Universe, personally. I say you turned on my notifications with this stream. I'll try to be there next time. It was great to got work done while interacting and listening to you, but not enough High Guardian Spice, so 4 out of 10. I'm so sorry. I agree. I will have like the High Guardian Spice background music playing at all times, especially the part where it plays Scarborough Fair. I will just have that on loop and we can listen to that and it would improve the stream 5,000%. Hold on. Let me just go here into my folder. OC, do not steal. I can't play that, it's gonna get me copyright claimed. Oh, where is it? I know I have it. Towards SpongeBob. Damn it. I thought I had the High Guardian Spice soundtrack, but it doesn't look like I have. Damn it, I was about to make a good joke. Sorry, I'll have it next time. Amaryllis is Emma.fanchild confirmed. That would actually be good. Like, that would actually be very interesting to see. This is the end of the stream. Yeah, I'm just gonna like chat for a little bit longer, just to kind of wind down, and then I'm gonna say goodnight and take a lozenge. Did my music freeze because I dared to click on it? I think so. Yes, we need more spices on this stream. Let's grab a bunch of herbs and flowers and put them there too. Yes, I agree. I think the soundtrack is on a YouTube playlist. It is actually, but my laptop's being funny. I need to restart it, so I don't trust it enough to go onto YouTube and to find it. What actually happened was I saw that the people who did the soundtrack for High Guardian Spice, because the show took so long to come out, eventually they just uploaded the soundtrack to their website because it's part of their portfolio, because they were just tired of waiting. The joke is the Spice friends who made along the way. Oh, see, that's it. I made a Dune joke without even realizing it. The spice must flow. Of course. You see, it's all connected. It's a conspiracy. It's all coming together. You think you can plug those things now? No, rather wait until the stream is finished and then just comment them in the comment section, if you don't mind, please. No one in particular. That would be quite cool. Also because then people can find it quite easily without having to scroll through the entire chat replay to find the links. Did I save this? Yes, I did. Just making sure. Ugh. All this time, old magic was a metaphor for oil and new magic is nuclear power. Oh no, don't write the story for them. I'm gonna do the next episode on the last 3 episodes, and I'm gonna talk about like the culmination of the new magic versus old magic argument that the show's been having, because they do like one thing right at the end with Caraway, and then they're like, yes, that's what we were building up to. And I'm like, no, you were building up something completely different. But I'm gonna say good night. It is almost 11 over here at night. So I'm gonna have to say goodnight before I keep up the entire household. But I want to say thank you so much for coming to the monthly stream as sponsored by Patreon. Thank you very much to the patrons. And oyasumi nasai. And I will see you guys hopefully next month. I always put a notification a week before the stream so that you have ample time to let me know if that works for everyone. And if enough people say no, I'm working that day, or I've got a thing, then we can reschedule, or if there's a holiday that I'm unaware of in another country, things like that. But I'm glad everyone had fun, and I'm glad that we could have fun together, and I'm glad I finally got to draw the best character. And I will post the final image to the community tab. I won't post it to Tumblr or Twitter because, again, I don't want to interact with Rodriguez while critiquing his work. It just makes me feel weird, and I'm gonna have difficulty critiquing it if that happens, because I don't want to willfully hurt someone's feelings. So you'll see her on the community tab, but you won't see her on social media. So I'm going to say good night, everyone. Oh, and I'm going to play my outro song. I don't often give a shout out to the outro song because it's usually not a big deal, but I want to shout this one out because it's one of the Brony musicians on YouTube. And the Brony musicians, they do such good work, guys. Like, the Brony music community puts out such absolute bangers for no licensing whatsoever. They purely rely on YouTube revenue, and most of them are not even, they don't even have the subscription number to be monetized. So they just put this music out for free. So I really want to shout out this person, if I can remember who they are. I have linked, you know what, I don't know what their name is, but I've linked them in the description of this video. It's the last link of the music section. So I just want to shout them out, check them out. They've got really good music, and I shall see you all, where's my OBS, next time, as soon as I find the ending thing. Here it is. Bye, guys.
Never for the things that I could never be. Still you're walking out the door. Say what you want, say what you want, but you'll never find me more. For what it's worth, you got me good, but I'm still silent. Say what you want, say what you want. Yeah, say what you want.